Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff_2020, and I am continuing my 15-minute segments reading the book Operation Gladio by Paul L. Williams. Why am I reading this book? Because I think it's important that everybody understand the connections between the CIA, the Vatican Bank, and the Mafia, and how all of the facts that we've been taught in our newspapers, our magazines, our books, even our history lessons, have been based upon CIA disinformation. This book helps us to pry open the door to the real history, the real truth, and the reality of our world today. Unexpected visitors, Agca. Of course, he was in prison now, sentenced to life in prison with 1 year of solitary confinement. Despite this sentence, however, he soon received an ongoing stream of visitors. And these included General Santovito and Father Morleone, the people who were putting together this plot to begin with, members of the Camorra, which is the one of the Italian mafias, of course, including fellow prisoner Raffaello Cutolo, agents from the CIA, and Monsignor Marcello Morgante, who represented Archbishop Marcinkus of the IOR. Isn't it incredible to think about Archbishop Marcinkus, the very first non-Italian president of the IOR, and he comes from Chicago, from Cicero, Illinois. And we expect him to be a non-corrupt agent running the most important bank of any church, of any religious institution that's ever existed. Archbishop Marcinkus, I do not believe you could possibly be an honest man. The visits were choreographed by Pazienza to advance the Bulgarian thesis. During his daily visits, Pazienza, with Cutolo at his side, notice the threat, showed Agca photographs of Antonov and several Bulgarians that they wished to implicate in the assassination attempt. By the fall of 1981, Agca was singing a new song to Italian prosecutors. He had acted in the service of the KGB. Well, obviously, right? I mean, if he wasn't with us, he must be with the Russians. The assassination team had included an accountant and a military attaché from the Bulgarian embassy in Rome, and the plans were drafted in the apartment of Sergei Antonov, the patsy, the innocent man who happened to be in the wrong place, living above the CIA agent. Well, Antonov was arrested and subjected to daily and nightly interrogations. He proclaimed his innocence and denied any ties to the KGB or the CSS. The grilling continued with injections of psychotropic drugs. Well, there you go. There's your MK Ultra, your mind control, your Alan Dulles, and Henry Kissinger, playing with people's minds, trying to find sorry about that. Toto gets so mad when I say the name of Henry Kissinger that I really have to stop for a minute. No. Oh, man. She got so mad. All right, so these are the players that are setting up Antonov, the innocent man who happened to live upstairs. They gave him psychotropic drugs in order to what? To get him to confess to something that he had no idea what he supposedly did? He was kept in prison for 3 years. By the time of his release, he was psychologically damaged and physically disabled. For the rest of his life, Antonov was unable to carry on a conversation or perform a simple task. On August the 1st, 2007, he was found dead in a barren apartment in Sofia. At the start of 1982, the disinformation campaign was in full swing. Claire Sterling published articles on the KGB's involvement in the attempt on John Paul II's life. and the articles appeared in Reader's Digest and other national periodicals. Michael Ledeen issued a barrage of insider reports, quote-unquote, for Il Giornale Nuovo, and Marvin Kalb. Remember Marvin Kalb? We used to see him on TV all the time, a supposed news reporter, presented special reports on the Soviet connection to the sacrilege. The theory soon became accepted as fact by such influential media outlets as the New York Times. Oh, come on, New York Times, you were easy, right? You rolled right over. Operation Mockingbird once again was living up to its name. By 1985, Claire Sterling's, quote, The Time of the Assassins, a book, and Paul Hentz's The Plot to Kill the Pope, published by Scribner's, were published to widespread critical praise. Few noted that the basis of these works was a strategic mendacity, and that both authors were in the employ of the CIA. But the story was unraveling as soon as it was being spun. Agca had been able to describe every small mole and blemish of the Bulgarians he wished to implicate in the crime, but he remained unable to estimate their height. This proved telling, since two of the alleged co-conspirators who worked at the Bulgarian embassy in Rome resembled Mutt and Jeff from the comic strip. Their disparity in stature was almost comic. Another problem came from Agca's description of Antonov's apartment. The distinctive features he described, including an ornate room divider between the living and dining areas, were not found in the Bulgarians' living quarters. They were unique to the flat one floor below, which was occupied by Father Morleone, the CIA agent. Agca also mentioned meeting Antonov's wife and children during the planning sessions in April, but the Bulgarian's family was not in Rome at that time. They had returned to Bulgaria. Despite these discrepancies, the Bulgarian thesis might have remained credible, save for the work of Ugur Mumcu. That's Ugur Mumcu, Mumcu or Mumsu, one of Turkey's leading journalists. Digging into Agca's background, he uncovered the fact that the would-be assassin was a lackey for Bekir Selenk. He discovered that Selenk was engaged in the smuggling of arms and drugs through his fleet of cargo ships, which sailed under a Panamanian flag. Interviewing workers and crew members of the Vasula, he obtained testimony that the ship had carried 495 rocket launchers and 10,000 missiles from the Bulgarian port of Burgos to Istanbul, where it was received by leading figures from the Turkish underworld, including Abuzer Ugurlu. Mumcu, or Mumsu, working with the Turkish police, established Agca's ties to the Grey Wolves and right-wing terrorists. He realized that the would-be assassin had performed executions, including the murder of İpekçi, with Abdullah Kath and Oral Çelik. What's more, he was able to identify Çelik as the gunman who was running from St. Peter's Square with a pistol in his hand. The Turkish journalist made more discoveries, including the ties of Agca, the Grey Wolves, and the Babas to Stibam International and the CIA. He pinpointed Henri Arsan as a key figure in the massive smuggling operation and the Hotel Vitosha as the center of mob gatherings. He also established that Sergei Ivanov Antonov was neither an agent nor double agent. He was simply a dupe. Ugur Mumcu would pay for making these revelations. He was killed when a car bomb exploded outside his home on January 24, 1993. No arrests were made. When Mumcu launched his probe into the attack on John Paul II, Paul Hentze tried to convince him that the would-be assassins were agents of the Soviet Union. The reporter refused to follow the information trail provided by the CIA station chief, opting instead to investigate the ties between Agca and the Babas. Hence they advised him to abandon the probe, saying, reportedly, quote, "If you do not, you might find a nice surprise in store," unquote. Thus concludes chapter 16, moving on to chapter 17, which begins with a quote from our friend, no, it's not from Jean Chip Tatum, but it's from Michael Harari, writing to Jean Chip Tatum. And here is the quote from Harari to Tatum, 1985. "What we do has nothing to do with preserving a country's integrity. It's just business, and third world countries see their destiny as defeating borders and expanding. The more of this mentality we can provide, the greater our wealth. We train and we arm. That's our job. And in return, we get a product far more valuable than money for a gun. We're paid with product, and we credit top value for product. Look, one gun and 3,000 rounds of ammunition is $1,200. A kilo of product in Nicaragua is about $1,000. We credit the Contras $1,500 for every kilo. That's top dollar for a kilo of cocaine. It's equivalent to the American Kmart special, buy 4, get 1 free. On one side, we spend $1,200 for a kilo and sell it for $12,000 to $15,000. Now that's a profit incentive. It's just good business, understand?" Six months before the attempted assassination of John Paul II, Italian judge Carlo Palermo launched an investigation into the smuggling of heroin within northern Italy. After arresting and interrogating local drug king Herbert Oberhofer and members of his gang, Palermo became aware that the heroin was arriving in police cars that were provided by Kara Mehmet Ali, an agent of the Turkish mafia. The leading importer of the smack was Karl Koffler, a key figure in a kidnapping ring. Palermo's team of detectives tailed Koffler to Sicily, where Koffler met with Gerlando Albertini, a member of the Sicilian mafia. Albertini operated a laboratory that produced 100 kilograms of choice brown No. 4 heroin a week. He was in league with Stefano Bontade, who had helped to arrange the fake kidnapping of Michela Sindona. In January 1981, Koffler was taken into custody and began to provide details about the Balkan route, the Babas, the Sicilian Men of Honor, and Stibam International, which had become the hub of the drug trade. He said that Hussein Sil, that's C-I-L, one of the leading Babas, was responsible for transporting the heroin to the United States on ships owned by Bekir Selenk. He spoke of the arms from the NATO bases that were being supplied in exchange for the drugs. The weapons, Koffler testified, included tanks, helicopter gunships, aircraft, and 3 freighters. On March 7, 1981, Koffler was found murdered in his cell within a prison in Trento. He had been placed in solitary confinement and was under 24-hour surveillance. Koffler's throat had been slit and his heart pierced by a very fine needle. No one was ever charged with the crime. But the damage had been done. Palermo and his investigators now turned their attention to Stibam and the day-to-day activities of Henri Arslan. They began to receive reports from Ugur Mumsu that served to confirm their suspicions. The Stibam pipeline flowed from Bulgaria to Sicily, and it remained protected by some very powerful individuals, including Sismi and NATO officials. By keeping Stibam under his watchful eye through 1981, Palermo could verify that the seemingly innocuous shipping company had shipped more than 4,000 kilos of pure heroin to markets throughout Europe and the United States. The net worth of these shipments was $400 billion.